we've got with us now, he's stepping in from our virtual green room, Bryce Austin, and this is his territory. This is his lane. He knows all about this, and boy, I'll tell you what. You say, Bryce, that the mainstream media and all the things that are being reported, they're getting it wrong. What are they getting wrong?
Hi there, Kate. I think they're getting the extent of what this breach means to U.S. citizens wrong. They're saying that 143 million Social Security numbers were breached, and that's true. What they're not saying is that 60% of Americans have already had their Social Security numbers breached in some other event, some other incident. So while it's a problem, I'm not trying to minimize it, it's not the sky is falling doom and gloom. I'm much more concerned about what the total extent of this breach really is. I don't know that it's known yet. We're getting some inconsistencies even today, Kate.
Yeah, and when you say inconsistency, so if you're like my friends and they're panicking, some people I know, and of course the stock plunged even after the CEO even after the CEO announced changes after that breach. What are the real inconsistencies you think that are happening?
Sure. I see a couple that concern me deeply. One, there was a report that came out today that the credit card companies have been putting out an alert to over 200,000 credit card holders that those credit cards were lost in the breach. Well, that was announced, so that's consistent with what Equifax has said. But what the credit card companies put out is that this information was stolen as early as November of 2016. That's inconsistent with the timeline being given by Equifax, and that suggests to me that they may not know the full extent of this breach. The doomsday scenario that I have in my head is this. If it wasn't just this Social Security number information on basically every working American out there, if it was the core data that has the history of our credit going back decades, well, then the bad guys that took this have the ability to manipulate and control at a level that the media is not talking about. We haven't seen this data out on the dark web for sale. That's where criminals go to try to buy it. So as far as we know, they're not trying to profit financially from it. Well, that moves the motivation to manipulation or power or control. So what if I am some foreign government looking for people that would be vulnerable to need some sort of financial help, to be in some sort of bad situation? I'd do two things. I'd looked at LinkedIn to try to find the 50,000, 100,000 people that would obviously have access to data I want. They're data analysts, they're cybersecurity experts, what have you. Then I'd look at the Equifax data, and I would try to find the 50 or 100,000 people that have had good credit for a long time up until the last year or two. They're going through some sort of crisis, a health issue, a divorce, who knows what. Then I'd try to put those two groups together and see if I can find 500 or 1,000 people that overlap in both and try to manipulate them into giving me data that I want. That's my big concern, and it's not being covered, and that concerns me even more, Kate.
Yeah, and so great stuff. So for Equifax, this breach that happened again, and then talking about it's not on the dark web, manipulating the information, and how that concerns you, because if you marry some of those factors together, you're right, it would be a gold mine, wouldn't it? And who knows what somebody would lose in that case, right?
It could be a life-changing issue, Kate.
Oh.
When we have credit card breaches like Home Depot or Target, and Target's the one that I was a team member during the breach, it was an interesting time. When those sorts of things happen, the way those things were found is because the data was being sold on the dark web. And the credit card companies were able to trace back where they were used, and then they went knocking on the door of the retailer that had been breached. Well, that's not what happened here. These were found internally. And because of that, they happened for a longer period of time, and we didn't have a lot of information and insight as it was coming out internally to these companies. That leaves us in the dark a little bit as to just what the extent is. The only information we have to go on is that which Equifax is telling us. And given the things that have come out about their websites where you can check to see if you were breached, that give two different answers to the same person at the same time, to the things they had going on in South America where they had customer service representatives dealing with disputes. Yeah, they all shared a username and a password. It was a username of admin and a password of admin. So my 6-year-old could now have hacked Equifax. That concerns me.
Yeah, and I can see why. We're speaking with Bryce Austin, and he is a cybersecurity guru, talking about how easy it would be to crack that. So that's bad on Equifax. What did they, in your opinion, and because as you mentioned, you were really inside the Target thing, as you called it, a team member, right? So what do you think? Correct. What did we learn from that? And here's what I think that's fascinating. First of all, Equifax, what could they have done differently?
A number of things. As of this morning, they came out that the way the breach initiated, according to them, was they hadn't patched one of the servers that runs the system that was breached since last March. See, when a vulnerability comes out, you see all those Windows patches that show up on your computer. We need to reboot. We need to do an update. It happens all the time. Well, those are security holes that have been found. And the problem is that as soon as the patch comes out, Kate, one of the cyber criminals can deconstruct what the patch did. So then they know where the vulnerability is. So if the system hasn't been patched, well, now they know how to get into it. If you had an armored car in Iraq and you noticed there were some of them that were driving around with a new piece of plate steel on the side, well, what you do is you would shoot whatever it is you had at the ones that didn't have that plate steel at that spot. You know where the vulnerability is.
Right.
Well, so that happened last March, and it was a serious vulnerability because it was seen being exploited in the wild. So it wasn't theoretical. Bad guys were going after this. Well, between March and May, Equifax never patched their servers, and that's how they got hacked. That's the first thing that they could have done differently. The second thing, it is blatantly obvious they had no playbook. They had no plan as to what to do if and when the breach happened, which is unconscionable because they've been breached 3 times before.
Wow.
It just hadn't been this serious. The book I've written on cybersecurity for business owners and executives is available for pre-order on Amazon now. And I have a chapter specifically about how to write playbooks. And if they would have read those 20 pages, this debacle that they've been dealing with in the media and such would have gone a whole lot more smoothly for them. It's really surprising, given the size of the company.
It is. And Bryce, so going back to even the Target thing and you being in the middle of that and obviously taking some of that, I'm certain of what you saw, and then being able to apply that into this book that you've written. When you look at what happened at Target, do you think that still, I don't understand why more companies aren't taking a lesson from that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, at Target, the people that were affected were the customers of Target. So there were a lot of efforts to try to make things right. I can't speak on behalf of the company. I'm no longer a team member there. But everybody knows they gave 10% off of Target to the whole country for a day. The CIO and the CEO were no longer part of the organization soon after. Big changes took place. The problem with Equifax, Kate, we're the ones that got breached. You and I, the citizens, we're not the customer. We're not. It is the creditors buying this information about us that are the customers. I gave a talk today at the old General Mills building here in Minneapolis, and what I equated us to, we aren't the customer for Equifax. We're the wheat that goes into the processing plant. That's all we are. So we need someone to make them care about this. And that's where I think the buck needs to stop, is that there were good lessons learned in the retail breaches, but it was obvious that the retailers had to do something because consumers were upset because they were impacted. We don't have that when it comes to this breach.
Yeah, with Equifax, absolutely. Great stuff, Bryce. Tell us again, how can people get a copy of your book? They go to Amazon. Tell me the name again.
Sure. It is called Secure Enough with a question mark. And if you type that in, you'll see the pre-order. The subtitle is 20 Questions on Cybersecurity for Business Owners and Executives. Wow.
Great. Bryce, thanks for hanging late with us. We appreciate you.
Not at all. Thank you for the opportunity, Kate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he rocked it because he punches a hole in so much of what we've heard. And even in talking to other cybersecurity gurus, he takes it a step forward and gives you more specifics on really what everybody's missing. And he's right. That's the scary part of this whole breach. Stay with us. Much more coming your way on the flip side here on America Tonight.
Give me some moments, get your car.